Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be breaking down the current conditions, taking a deep dive into the current tropical conditions. There is a couple of disturbances we need to talk about, and also some upcoming severe weather. Let's get straight into things though, and first things first, we're taking a look here at our current radar imagery, and as you can see, there is a little bit going on here for the Northern Rockies, but that's about as much as, I mean, that's all that's going on up there in the Northwest, really. It's kind of crazy. There is some stuff offshore of Washington and Oregon there. I'm sure that will be impacting that region eventually. We will take a zoomed in look a little bit later on. There is quite a bit of activity here for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. There was a very, very large tornado in Texas yesterday. So obviously I hope everybody is safe. That was a very scary looking tornado yesterday that took place. I was seeing the video come in last night. I mean, absolutely crazy stuff. And just a constant reminder that can happen on any sort of severe weather day, because it wasn't necessarily a moderate or a high risk at all of severe weather or tornadoes for that matter. It was more of it was either a slight risk or an enhanced risk, I forget, but usually people don't take those types of situations as seriously as they probably should. And that was a really, really good reminder that anything is possible. That's kind of what I've tried to share in these videos, to just expect the unexpected and obviously hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I think that's a really, really good saying. So that's just a couple of words I wanted to say in the beginning of this video. For southern Texas, we do have quite a bit of showery activity. It's actually quite heavy. Some thunderstorm and showery activity down there for the deep south. And then for the mid-Atlantic up through the northeast, we do have quite a bit of showers. These are light to moderate, but we will zoom in on those and get a more detailed look as well. Now for the northwest, like I mentioned here, we do have this kind of isolated showery activity up here for Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. We do see some snowfall in there and also some rainfall, so we're seeing a bit of a mixed bag there of precipitation. Now offshore of Washington and Oregon, like I mentioned, there is that showery activity there. That looks to be moving in this direction, so that will be eventually impacting at least northern Oregon and then the coastal regions of Washington, but possibly more areas than just that. Now as we move down a little bit further south here, we do see that there is quite a bit of activity ongoing here for Colorado, Kansas, Missouri here in these northern regions. This is mostly showers up here, light to moderate showers, snow and rain, mostly snow for Colorado, and mostly rain for eastern Colorado in through Kansas and Missouri. The further south you go, however, we do see more of what looks like some thunderstorms rolling through southern Oklahoma here, in through northern Texas. So this corridor here looks to be pretty heavy with those thunderstorms. And anytime you see a shape like this develop on this thunderstorm, look at how it just bows out. I'll zoom into exactly what I'm talking about here. But this area here in particular just kind of bows out in this kind of a shape. So you see that take place. We do have wind concerns expected with that type of a storm, and that is headed towards kind of like I-35 a little bit later this morning. So that will be impacting the areas in between Oklahoma City and Dallas and Fort Worth, basically. So we're going to be watching for that a little bit later on as things progress, obviously. As we head down towards southern Texas, we can see that there is kind of some thunderstorms in here, heavier showers as well. Flood warnings coming in here, so keep that in mind as well, that very heavy rainfall and lots of it is coming down for the southern regions of Texas. So keep that in mind as those thunderstorms roll through. We are seeing some Gulf storms head in to the deep south. That is this time of year where we start to see that happening. So all of these areas are impacted by potential thunderstorms and showers coming off of the Gulf of Mexico. They are a little bit tropical in nature. Usually they can be thunderstorms, obviously, and expect possible flooding, especially in this corridor where we've seen those heavier showers pop up, quite large showers as well. Now, as we finally head up towards the northeast and the mid-Atlantic, we can see that there is this pocket of showers taking place, and it's kind of just moving in this direction. So we're seeing a lot of that activity move in just like this. Light to moderate showers in general for a lot of these areas, especially Virginia, Maryland, and then the Delmarva, as well as southern New Jersey there as well. So we're going to be watching for potential flooding in these areas where multiple inches of rainfall is also a possibility. All right. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to take a look at the model guidance, where we're going to deep dive into the upcoming pattern, the upcoming tropical concern, a new one this time around. It's getting towards that time of year as well. And then we're going to break down some of the upcoming severe weather also. Now, here we are taking a look at the kind of future radar here. We do see quite a bit of this activity in here and for the areas here in the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, as well as portions of the Northeast. Later on, though, this is going to kind of push closer to the coast here for the southeast and mid-Atlantic. We do see that this is really building in here for the south. A lot of that storminess down there. That is as we're approaching kind of later this evening. As we reach into tomorrow, what we're going to see, this low kind of moves northward. So it's moved up kind of like this, up into kind of Kansas, Missouri area. And we're seeing a lot of this precipitation out ahead of it. Basically what I think is going on here is we see the low, and then we see the cold front probably behind it like this, as well as a warm front right here. And what's happening is we're seeing really rapid air movement from the south here. So this rich in moisture Gulf air is just heading northward. And that's what's going to bring a lot of this activity in this corridor here. So expect pretty humid conditions as well as rainy conditions, as well as some warmth here out ahead of that cold front for a lot of those areas I just circled in. As we approach Thursday evening, it's going to be a very similar setup, something like this. What we expect is that these showers will move a little bit further east, obviously, and it's going to be something like this. By the time we're reaching Friday, it's going to be May 27th. We can see that the low will be about over Ohio. Cold front is going to be moving through the southeast, warm front up here. So expect warmer conditions for the coast as we approach the weekend. But that will be kind of generally coming to an end as that cold front slams through. By the time we're reaching Saturday, the cold front will be basically offshore of the coast. We'll have some remnant showers left over. But most of the activity is now moving into the northwest by this point. By the time we're reaching Saturday, May 28th. Sunday, May 29th, we can see still some showery activity, possible thunderstorms as well. Some activity here in the north central United States, but again, mostly the northwest stealing the show here with some snowfall and rainfall. Overall quieter though, however. As we approach later into Monday, we see a low here in eastern Colorado with some showery activity up to the northwest of this low pressure system that is going to be in the form of rain and snow. And by the time we're reaching the afternoon hours of Tuesday, May 31st, the final day of May, we see this low is a 997, moves up into the Dakotas. We see this activity up here. Still some snowfall for the Rockies as we're approaching into the month of June. And it's funny how literally on June 1st, the snowfall kind of comes to an end. We see a bit of a cold front maybe developing in here. Very, very warm conditions actually looking like they're setting up here in the eastern United States by this point. Here's some of those tropical concerns down here, by the way, by this point. So somewhat of a tropical disturbance down there with the potential to impact really anywhere. We don't know what direction that'll head in. Thursday, June 2nd, we can see that really builds in down here. But for the lower 48 here, I mean, really nothing going on. Some showers for some spots, but by June 2nd, it looks rather quiet outside of those tropical concerns. Now, let's go ahead and break down those just the total precipitation through the next 10 days. Again, I don't want to be repetitive here, but we see a ton of precipitation down here where the tropical activity is expected to potentially take place there. So if you're anywhere in the whites, we're expecting practically no precipitation. The grays are going to be 0.1 or less inches of precipitation. Greens will be 0.1 to 0.5 inches of precipitation. Blues will be half an inch to an inch of precipitation. Yellows will be an inch to 2 inches. Reds will be 2 to 5 inches of precipitation. And then the browns will be 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. And down here where we expect that the kind of tropical disturbance, that's where we have 10 inches plus of precipitation over the next 10 days. So on average, over the next 10 days, these blue areas will see an inch per day or more, which is insane to think about. Now, for total snowfall over the next 10 days, obviously this is pretty exclusive for the western United States and very far northern Canada there. But if you're anywhere in the grays, we expect the dusting, if anything. Blues will be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples will be 6 to 10. Pinks will be 10 to 20. And then your pastels will be 20 inches plus. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the temperature pattern. Now, as you can see, things are currently a little bit colder than normal. Here we have a little bit of a battle going on in the southeast because we have some oranges showing up and then some blues. And it's kind of unknown what pattern will win out at this point. But it looks like the warmth starts to get a hold of the pattern right before this cold front comes through. This is the air right behind the cold front. So cold front is probably about here by this point, and that's where the potent cold air is right behind it. What's important to note is by the time we're reaching Thursday, again, this cold pattern starts to set into the east. Look at how much warmth has surged in the western United States. You guys can really expect a lot of warmth here to set up, and we call this a positive PNA here, so I'm going to draw that down here, even though it's a little bit hard to see. PNA, I don't know why I did a lowercase n there, but PNA, positive PNA, means that the temperatures are warmer here for the western regions of North America, basically, or more exclusively the United States. And that forces the cold air to go where this arrow is pointing towards the east, because you can't have cold air and warm air in the same place. Obviously, they have to stay somewhat far apart. They push each other around like oil and water. That's what you have to imagine. So as this warm air really sets in, the cold air is forced away like as if you were pushing oil through water or something of that nature. Or magnets, for instance, putting them the wrong way where they push each other away. That's kind of how this works. Now, we see that cold air really forces its way towards the east, but this pattern is very progressive, and what I mean by that is it's moving quickly, it's changing, it's evolving. It's not stuck in one way. It is constantly changing, and what we're seeing here is a negative PNA already setting in by the time we're reaching Saturday, May 28th, because we see the warm air is forcing its way further eastward because, again, the oil or the water here is forcing this air mass away right here. So this has to be a certain distance apart. So this is forcing this away, which is basically going to force the cold air away here in the eastern United States. And eventually this warm air will be in the east. This cold air will be over the west. And then we'll have to see if it's still progressive. So very confusing stuff, I know. It's a lot to think about. But by the time we reach Sunday, May 29th, it becomes a lot more simple. You can tell there's a trough in the west, ridge in the east here. Pretty classic pattern, but by the time we're reaching late this weekend, things should be really warming up in general for the east and should be cooling down and getting a little bit more stormy there for the northwest. Let's keep going with this, though, towards Monday, May 30th, and look at how warm things are getting. Another heat wave potentially for a lot of the eastern United States is going to be a possibility here as these very warm temperatures really set in. Cold all the way down to the southwestern United States and even northwestern Mexico there, so a pretty deep trough by that point. Sunday is going to look very similar, but look at the west coast. Warmth is kind of starting to build its way in, so that could be the catalyst to change this pattern. And by the time I reach Wednesday, June 1st, it looks like that is evidently taking over. So we're seeing a little bit of a ridge here, then a trough, then the ridge here. But this cold air is going to really start to force its way eastward. It probably has a cold front associated with it. Warm air building in like this. And this is actually a decent severe weather setup, I will say. This type of a look. There's probably a low somewhere over Iowa by this point. I forget exactly where one was with a cold front here. And as this warm air is heading kind of parallel to that cold front, that does set up pretty interesting setup there for tornadoes and wind if there was to be quite a bit of instability along this, which typically when you have that cold and warm air mass like this, there would be. So potentially around the beginning of June, we'll be watching for some severe weather. This is quite a bit out, so we'll have to wait and see, but that is something to think about. Now, this is an interesting pattern. We have really a huge ridge here in the eastern United States with warm air surging up even all the way up into New England. Warm air up in the west as well with cold in between here, so this is what we're taking a look at. This would be very hot for the east, I will say that. Looks like a heat wave of sorts actually taking place there, potentially to start things out in June, with cold air kind of on the way if that cold front can beat out the warm air, which as we get further and further into the summer, that's going to be harder and harder for those cold fronts to do. All right, now what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the tropics. So the first thing we need to take a look at is the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook here from the National Hurricane Center for the Eastern Pacific. We have two areas here. This one, this yellow one here, you can see has a 20% chance of cyclone formation in 5 days, within the next 5 days, that is. So we're going to be watching potentially for this area. This one doesn't seem to be our main concern here in the continental United States. But this one right here has a 50% chance of cyclone formation in the next 5 days. You probably can't see that whole thing, but that's what it says. 50% chance of development in the next 5 days. It is a 0% chance over the next 48 hours. So we know between days 3 and 5 is when that development is expected to be possible. The concern here, the main concern, is that it could potentially head northward like this into the Gulf. That is the main concern, because otherwise it would probably take a track more like this and eventually break up. So this would be track number 1 here, this one right here, and this would be track number 2, this one that heads further north. So our main concern is track number 2 taking place there. So let's take a look at the Atlantic graphical tropical weather outlook, and as you can see, no development is expected. So this would not be a homegrown system in the Atlantic. It would have to move over Mexico, which is a tough thing for tropical cyclones to do. There's a lot of mountains. There's things that break up storms that typically make it very hard for this to occur, but it does happen. This isn't something that should be ruled out. This is a fairly realistic scenario to pay attention to. So here is our view of the Gulf of Mexico. Here's our cyclonic vorticity. This shows us where spinning storms are basically at, like large-scale rotation in the atmosphere. Obviously, the reds and the purples is going to be stronger rotation, and then the greens and the grays is going to be very, very slight rotation. So while we're watching for, I got to move this actually to the 0Z model once we get far enough. So we're going to be watching this area towards the bottom here where I'm drawing. For that storm to come across the area in Mexico there. Look at that. There it comes. This is by the time we're taking a look at about June 1st. Right around June 1st, we see this activity move in. So the European model does have it, and it does like to intensify right here in this spot. Gulf is very, very warm right now, so we see potential development there. But it does kind of do this. I'll show you exactly what it does. It kind of horseshoes around, and it wants to kind of spin back around and hit Mexico again. So that would obviously lessen the concern here for these areas here. But we're going to have to watch and see. This can really change over time, and this is very far out. It might not even happen, but we need to track this and take it seriously because, again, this is a fairly realistic scenario in my opinion. GFS model, we're going to watch the same thing here on the GFS model. So this one comes a little bit more from directly south. The European model came in more like this over here. The GFS model comes kind of straight from the bottom. But it's the same idea. It comes across Mexico and moves into the Gulf of Mexico. And then as you can see, the GFS model also takes it on a track just about like this, where it just re-enters Mexico, where it curves back around. So if we watch that play out, boom. Goes back into Mexico, comes back where it came from, and really it doesn't have any sort of impact here on the lower 48 here, or any of the states of the United States, actually, for that matter. So as of now, this is a slight concern and something that we want to watch, but this isn't something to be freaked out about yet. And it really isn't even known how intense this thing can even get at this point either. So it's hard to tell for certain, but it's, take it with a grain of salt, but we're going to be watching this every single day until the threat either diminishes or until it's all said and done. So what we're going to do here is, real quick, we're going to move on and take a quick look at our upcoming severe weather. There isn't too much to discuss, but again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're going to want to pay attention to anything because anything is possible. So we're even going to be paying attention here to the lower risk of severe weather because bad things could still happen. All right, now here's our day 1 categorical outlook. And in the lighter green areas, we have our general thunderstorm risk. Anything is possible, so you're going to still want to heed every watch, warning, and advisory that might come in. But we do expect only general thunderstorms to take place and not really any severe weather is expected, but it is possible. Darker green region is going to be our marginal risk area, and that is where we expect isolated severe weather to be possible. And then our yellow area there is going to be our slight risk of severe weather, a very large one there, and that is where we expect scattered severe weather to take place. And that region there is actually quite large, and I do anticipate that there is a possibility that we get an upgrade to an enhanced tier for the day today, only because they're leaving so much room there in that slight risk area. It leads me to believe that there's a possibility of that taking place. Now for day 2 here, as you can see, we have 2 general thunderstorm risk areas, one there for North Dakota, a very small one there, and then one very large one there for the central and eastern United States, where again, we expect general thunderstorms, but expect the unexpected to be possible. Anything really is possible. And then our darker green region there, which is also quite large, we expect isolated severe weather to take place there within that marginal risk. For day 3, which will be Thursday, May 26th, we have 2 general thunderstorm risks again. One there for the Rockies, and then one there in the eastern United States where, again, we expect no severe weather, but it is possible, so heed every watch, warning, and advisory. And then again, our darker green region is our marginal risk where we expect isolated severe weather to be possible. Anyway, there's so much to go over in today's video, but for today's confidence tab, we are at a 4 out of 6. Obviously, the tropical concern is a little bit further out. There's multiple reasons for why our confidence is a little bit lower, but as we move closer to these major events, we will be increasing that confidence if our confidence actually feels higher. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Craich, James Wade, Dovin Nagel, Laura the Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Cartas as well. I would also to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Cadalasa, Catbite, Charles Tennant, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Khaleesi also. I'd also to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.